Today we start to look at a little bit of an extension on demand and supply and look at kind of benefits that people are receiving in addition to actually getting a good or service. And this is a good way to measure as far as things like who is better off, how are consumers benefiting, how are producers, is society as a whole doing as well as it can. So a way that we use this is to measure economic surplus. Now, this is not to be confused with surplus when we talk about supply and demand, where we have more units supplied than demand. So when we look at surplus, again, economic surplus, it's benefit that somebody is receiving. Right? And so, for example, we'll start with consumer surplus. So the consumer surplus is the benefit to the consumer, the benefit to the buyer. The way that it's measured is it's measured as the difference between what they were willing to pay for something and what they actually paid for it. And as a reminder, demand, going back to supply and demand, it's really a measure of willingness to pay. So keeping that in mind, the way that we measure it is the consumer surplus is the area below demand, above the price, up to the quantity sold. Okay? Now, that up to the quantity sold is important, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So here's a simple example of consumer surplus. So let's say that you want to go in and you want to buy an iPad. At the current moment, you don't know how much that iPad is. What you do know is that you are willing to pay $500 for it. Right? That's how much it's worth to you. Right? So again, willingness to pay, value, marginal benefit. We talked about all this. So you're willing to pay $500 for that iPad, which means that if it's up to and including that price, you're going to pay it because again, that's how much it's worth for you to you. But in reality, let's say that when you go in there, it only costs $300. So let's break this down a little bit. So let's say that, all right, let's look at when you walk in. So before you walk into, let's say it's Best Buy, all right, before you walk through the doors, you have $500 in cash. And so the total value is $500. And the idea is that, if you walk out of there and that iPad is $500, you buy it, you walk out with the iPad, nothing else, you're no worse off. However, that iPad only cost $300. So because it's worth more to you than it costs, you're going to buy it. So you're walking out with that iPad, which is valued at $500. However, what you're also walking out of there with is cash. It only cost you $300 out of the $500, so you still have $200 in cash. So when you take that iPad, which is valued at $500, and the cash left over, which is $200, the total value of what you're walking out of there with is $700. Right? So the difference is $200. That is your surplus. Because the iPad you paid less than it was worth to you, you had an extra benefit because it's kind of like found money. You find money, you act a little reckless with it. So let's say you're walking around, you find $100 on the street. You might spend it on something that you otherwise wouldn't. And the idea is, well, okay, you got the money. You weren't expecting it. It's a nice benefit. So whatever. If I didn't have the money, I wouldn't be any worse off. So I have it. This is great. That's the idea with surplus is that extra $200 in cash you're walking out of because you are paying less than you were willing to, than it was worth to you. It's basically just extra money. It's like an added bonus because the price is that low. That low relative terms. So again, that $200, which is the amount that the price was less than what you're willing to pay, that is your consumer surplus. So let's look at this. So if we go back, this was the example that we used with the demand when we broke down one individual's demand curve. And so when we did this, we said that for the first unit of this good, this individual was willing to pay $4 for it. For the second unit, was willing to pay $3. And then 2, 1, and then 0. So let's say that the price is $1. So no matter, when you go in there, for the most part, it's not, if you buy 1, it's going to cost this amount. If you buy 2, it's going to cost this amount. If you buy 3, it's going to cost this amount, and so forth. Now, there's times when you buy in bulk when that happens, but that's a separate issue. So again, the price is $1. All right, so let's put it right here. All right, so there's your price, $1. So let's look at that first one. For that first unit of the good, this individual was willing to pay $4 for it, but only paid $1, which means that was willing to pay for it only had to pay $1. And so basically, those $3 extra, that's your found money. That's your bonus money. That's money, that $3 that individual is willing to part with to get that first unit of the good. And so if we look at it, it's going to look, there you go. So there is the consumer surplus on the first unit. Okay. So now let's look at the second. For the second, this person was willing to pay $3, only had to pay $1, and so consumer surplus had $2 extra. That's just the extra money from not having to pay the full price. And so it's going to look like this. Okay. So this is the consumer surplus on the second unit. This is the consumer surplus on the first. For the third one, still just paying $1. Let's copy this down. And so, so for the third one, was willing to pay 2, did pay 1, got $1 of surplus, $1 benefit. Now the fourth, still going to buy the fourth. All right, oh, sorry. Grab this one, let's put this in here. This is the consumer surplus of the third unit. Now for the fourth, was willing to pay $1, did pay $1, still going to buy it because it's still worth, this fourth one is still worth it, but not going to get any benefit from that. And so if we look at this, oh, and by the way, the fifth one was not worth anything, but it would cost $1, so not going to buy it. Right? And if you don't buy something, and this is the important part of the up to the quantity purchased, you can't get benefit from something if you don't buy it. Okay? So when we go through and look at this, consumer surplus, $3 for the first, $2 for the second, $1 for the third, $0 for the fourth. And so the total surplus, total consumer surplus for this individual, when the price is $1, is $6. So basically, this person was willing to pay for those 4 units that he bought $10. 4 for the first, 3 for the second, 2 for the third, 1 for the fourth. Right? So for those 4 units, he spent $1 each, which means he only spent $4. Was willing to spend 10, only spent 4. So he has $10 worth of whatever good this is. All right, that's the value of the 4 units of those goods. But he only had to pay $4 for it. So he basically has $6 extra that he was willing to part with. So that's for one individual. Now let's look at the market. All right. So again, when you have one individual's demand, it's just one part of the market. To get to the market, and this is going back to the demand, at each price, it's how many total units everybody demands. And so for here, in this example, the market demand, price equals minus 2Q plus 100, which is graphed here. And we're saying the price is 40. Now, when you find the price to find the quantity, you just plug it in there. And so that you know demand is price equals minus 2 times Q, which is, the price, which is 40, equals minus 2Q plus 100. So again, I'm just plugging this price of 40 in there. And so you get 40 equals, you get 2Q equals 60. Subtract 40 from both sides, and so you find quantity equals 30. Okay. All right, so now the consumer surplus is the difference between what they were willing to sell, or what they were willing to pay, and what they actually paid. So again, it's the area below the demand, above the price, up to the quantity that gets purchased. And so what it's going to be then, small here. So again, you have your demand, all right? That's how much they were willing to pay. The $40 is how much they did pay. Let's assume that 30 units were sold here. And so this area in here is going to be your consumer surplus. Right? This is the amount that consumers benefited by because they weren't paying that full amount. How do you calculate that? All right. Well, if you look at this, what do you have? You have a triangle. Triangle, the area of a triangle is 1/2 the base times the height. And so your consumer surplus is 1/2. That base goes from 0 to 30, this area in here, this line here. All right, so it's 30. And the height goes from 40 up to 100, and so it's going to be 60. And on that, you get 1/2 of 30, or actually, easier. Yeah, you get 1/2 of 1,800. And so the consumer surplus is $900. Okay. This is the added benefit they get from not having to pay that full amount. Okay. And so there's your consumer surplus.